Hello, this is Pastor Deborah, and this is the first video of the King's International Spiritual Care University. I wanted to make this introduction video on the basic courses for you that'll set the tone for all the other videos to come in the basic courses section. This one is entitled Helping People. I want to tell you a story about how I got into this. I was a young child and I used to go out and love I grew up in the military, and I was around people from all over the world who spoke all different languages, had all different skin colors. Just got along with them. Then as I grew up, I started hanging out with people in wheelchairs who had been in car wrecks, LGBT people. In the Deep South, I hung out with people of the black skin color because in the military, we were all just one family. And I learned that I loved people. And I didn't see color, and I didn't see their physical disabilities. I didn't see their education. I didn't see anything but something on the inside. I would hang out with them, go to movies. I would take people in wheelchairs who were most people would not hang around with. Volunteered with a lot of strange, we call it substance abuse, disabilities people. And people would ask me, how could I be with these people? I go, I don't know, just love them. And I would give that love out during the day, hugging, loving, going to the movies with them, picking them up, eating with them, talking with them, being friends with them. And then at night, I told them, I'd get filled back up with this love by God. Now, at that time, I did not know I was operating in my divine call of helping people. But back in the 1960s, there wasn't a lot, and I grew up in a family, not a lot of talking, a lot of mental illness. And if you wanted to help people, you could become a school teacher or a nurse, but I didn't feel called to that. So I followed my father, my earthly father's footsteps, which he went and got some masters, and he was a counselor and a psychologist and did IQ testing. So I followed that path. And what happened was I eventually became a licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida after 5 years of college, 2 years of supervision, taking the state test twice, then became nationally certified as a clinical mental health counselor. Then I became a mental health advocate up in Washington, D.C., lobbying. It's on the standards committee for all educational standards for mental health counselors. And I was a chairman of a nominating committee for the board of directors of the American Mental Health Counselors Association, as well as being a district representative of the Florida Mental Health Counselors Association. So I went about and got into private practice, worked in a rehab hospital with spinal cord injuries, people, head injuries, stroke patients, arthritis, speech therapists, doing neuropsychological testing with head injuries. And I kept trying to help people, and I knew there was something that wasn't happy there. So I decided to leave that and go into private practice more from a spiritual viewpoint, and got set up, but I really wasn't ready. That didn't work out. I went to work with a psychologist, going into nursing homes, doing group work. Did that, did psychological testing, social security testing for a couple years, and then put that down. And then what happened was I thought, well, maybe I could work in a church and be a licensed counselor and help people from that view. So that was, I pursued that, and that didn't work out either. So now I'm with nothing. And I was asked an important question. What was I going to do now? Was I going to quit, get mad, stop, or just keep going to church and keep going and learning? I said, I'm going after God the best way I knew how. So What happened was, I did that. And then what happened is, I heard this. I knew inside, he said, put down all your thoughts and thinking and ways of helping people and pick up ways to help people my way. So I knew what that meant. I had to learn a whole new set of knowledge and information, and I had to get involved in more training. So I went to every Sunday school class. Finally got to one where they were talking about helping people in ministry called personal ministry / deliverance. They were dealing with spiritual issues. Never heard of it. But I sat in the class and they went through the book called The Strong Man, What's His Name, What's His Game, by some Assembly of God ministers named the Robertsons. Knew nothing about it, started reading the scriptures, looking at everybody to determine what in the world is this stuff. But I went, got on the prayer team, learned how to lead people to the Lord, learned how to pray with them, learned how to do intercession. Then I applied to be on the deliverance team or the personal ministry team. And then I sat under coordinators and pastors. A lot of rules in the church. I had to wear certain kind of clothes, couldn't say certain things. And I got in trouble a lot. Because I started discovering when you're going to helping people the Lord's way, there's an enemy. Now, I was learning about him in the Sunday school class. Didn't really know much about the dude, but I found out. And what happened was, spiritual care is working in a world that I knew nothing about. Helping people spiritually was a different way of helping people. I knew the mental health way. I knew about therapy. I knew medicines. I knew shock treatment. I knew biofeedback. I knew how to do all that. But this was different. I had to study spiritual things, the spiritual realm. I had to study the way it operated. I had to study the kingdoms that were in it. I had to look behind the natural and see this realm back there. I had to learn all about it. I had to study. I had to learn what other people thought about it. So study I did. Stayed under authority. Stayed on the prayer team. Stayed on the deliverance team. Used to be in the sanctuary on Fridays. We'd have about 6,000 to 8,000 people come. Because the evangelist that was talking, he's now in heaven, was doing a great work about telling people get their lives right with the Lord and get on with the business. And people were coming from every denomination, no denomination, witches, the occult, everybody was showing up. And sometimes the presence, or you would call it, was so powerful. The other side didn't like it very well, and they would show up and act out. And I had to learn how to deal with people in bathrooms and under desks and little kids and adults and all kinds of stuff. And I had a lot of authority, and I had to learn how that this was the enemy, spiritual enemy. Now, I'm still sitting in the Sunday school class, reading the books, reading them, lots of books. Me in the spiritual warfare section in a Bible bookstore, I bought every book. I read everything. I got on the internet, looked at every ministry that dealt with deliverance, personal ministry, healing, words, getting free, solving problems. Now, on top of all this, I'm working, raising a family. Then I start volunteering through the church in a jail, going in and talking about reading scriptures, talking about spiritual things with a group. Then I volunteered in a hospital here to learn how to be a chaplain. Of course, paid money for that. Spend time in the emergency room once a week, spend the night in the hospital, up early, praying, having to deal with death and people and families. Very good. If you ever get it, it was called Pastoral Clinical Education. Excellent. Anybody who wants to do chaplaincy work needs to take it. I was in the military, I already had that kind of training, so I knew about the front lines and bullets and guns, a very tough first responder. That was the family I grew up in, so that was no problem. I did street ministry, did jail ministry, went in the jail, did Bible studies, did preaching. I had to be around them. And then I became a Assembly of God minister, went through all that, and got ordained. And then what happened was I started working, my first group of people I started working with, sort of on my own, was coming out of multi-generational Satanism, witches and that called. And they were trying to come there and stop these services. And what happened was I didn't know much about that. I was just loving on them, praying for them. And they started attacking me, trying to kill me, poison me, had people shoot me. I had to keep loving. And I didn't realize that helping people from this spiritual viewpoint was much more powerful. Many more attacks came, and false sexual allegations were coming. And so what happened with Assemblies and I, we discovered that I didn't really fit into their little box. I wasn't a normal sort of minister, and they were kind of suggested that I sort of resign and go my own way, which I did, and been there ever since. And so what happens is spiritual care is very important. There's other kinds of care, as I'm teaching in other parts of the thing. There's the physical body care, very important, to make sure that that is healthy as it can be. There's mental, psychological care. That's real important. And then there's the spiritual part. So I had the first two parts, the biological, and I had the emotional, psychological part. Now I was learning the spiritual part. And in the basic classes, you're going to learn that you first must have a deep, deep desire to help people at all costs, even if it costs you your life, your jobs, whatever. And you will be attacked. It's very serious. You're dealing with very ancient and old enemies. And you have to grow, you have to learn, and you have to understand power and authority. You have to be under power and authority for a long time. You have to learn how to pray with people, have to speak to them, how to talk without talking. You have to learn how to speak to spiritual things past the ears of somebody else. Learn to spot when somebody goes into a trance. Spot somebody that's flipping into multiple personalities. Spot when the eyes of a spiritual being are looking out through you. To also learn the flesh versus the spiritual and see beyond that. Learn to listen to all songs and words. So this was my training for years and years and years. And what it provided with me was training grounds, supervision, lots of reading, a lot of opportunity to see spiritual things at work. One of the things I had to learn was Matthew 18:18. I had to learn how to speak that which whatever you bind up on earth is bound. And I had to learn how to use that to stop spiritual things from being angry. And one of my one of my training sessions, so I brought a young girl. She was in a wheelchair. She had Tourette's disease. And during praise and worship time, she would get very agitated. So, and it was very distracting. So the ushers would bring her and her mom out. They were both from Germany, spoke no English. So they took her to the women's bathroom and they laid the young girl on this sofa in there. And they called me to sort of pray and calm the situation down. So I get in there. They don't speak any English. And I look in the young girl's eyes, and here's what was revealed to me. In the spirit, her spirit was being chased by a baboon type of spirit. And it was chasing her. Her body was laying sort of quiet. But when it caught her, it started raping her, biting her. And when that happened, her biological body started agitating. Okay. And I had to bind it up and pray peace. And what I heard was, this is what is happening in the spiritual world to these precious spirits. And this is what will happen in hell if we don't get people so they don't go there. Valuable lesson. Another lesson I learned, there was a guy who drove a white van, don't remember his name, maybe Tony. He'd be like a driver in the mafia. And he stopped He looked and his eyes were dancing back and forth, dancing, dancing. It was demonic spirits. And I had to learn to look at eyes. I had to learn to look at skin color. I had to determine in a church service if during praise and worship time, if how somebody was worshiping, were they bound? Were they free? Was it flesh? Was it demonic? What was it? And I got in a lot of trouble because I would call something demonic or flesh, and they would argue with me, and I'd get called to the chaplain's office. Me and the chaplain spent a lot of time together on his sofa because I got in trouble. Why? Because I moved in the gifts of the Spirit, and the one I moved in was called the discerning of spirits. Didn't know anything about it, and I'll tell you another story because we're in the spiritual section of the basic, the King's International Spiritual Care University. You're going to hear a lot of spiritual stories from me and how to help people. Now, I knew nothing about this gift. So I'm walking in a university, and there's a couple of people in front of us. This man looks back, and I could hear him thinking. He's looking back, and he said, didn't open his mouth, I don't want to hold that door open for those people back there. And I'm going, oh dear, I'm hearing voices. And then I heard God say, I'm allowing you to hear his spirit think, talk. I go, he said, that was a gift I gave to my son, Jesus. I go, okay. If Jesus did it, then I'm supposed to do it. I didn't freak out. I move in that gift, probably move in all the gifts that are in the Bible, except the one of interpretation of tongues. That one I have to have done for me by God himself, because I don't get it. I can speak it, but I don't understand a thing of it. So I move in that discerning of spirits, which means I peer into that realm, that spiritual realm. You can see things, hear things, and know what's going on. And you need that gift in operation in your life. It's not all the time, it's only when it's needed. So when you're going to help people from a spiritual care point of view, you have to be in tune spiritually, and you have to be working very hard. So I wanted to bring this first basic introduction to helping people. You must have a heart to help people. You must be willing to pay the cost to help people spiritually. You must know that you are going to be attacked, your family, everything. It will be very rough. You will move in spiritual power. You'll be under teachers and tutors for a long time because you're behind the scenes where nobody's at. You'll keep your mouth shut. I have to keep my mouth shut. Some of my stories are coming out. They're pretty powerful, but a lot of things will never come out because they're with people that are in very powerful positions, and I have to move behind the scenes, and I have to do some things. But right now, this introduction is the basic sort of introduction. You must know you have a call, a divine purpose to help people. You may not know how to do it, may not know exactly all the deep, but this that you are to help people, help humanity. And then from there will come all the teaching and the knowledge and the gifts that you'll need to fulfill that purpose. So the basic courses you're going to take in this section are going to be dealing with the basics of some of the things I went through and I had to learn to help people the spiritual way. And it's not as glamorous as many of the other ways, and it'll wear on you. But if you want to learn how to help people and be a carrier and a vessel of agape love and a voice that is carried in authority and dominion, and that it can change situations in people's lives, then keep staying with the courses. We're going to go slow. I do want you to get that book. That was the first book I read. It was called Strong Man, What's His Name? What is His Game? By the Robertsons. And it goes through about 16 or 17 different strong men. And that's where I started. You read, you go to the scripture references, you read, you look, you ponder. They may have some things on YouTube, I'm not sure. Check out other ministries that do breaking bonds, freedom ministries, deliverance ministries, getting free, bondage breakers out there. Look, read the scriptures, read, study, take classes. It's a whole, you don't have to uh, go, there's no classes in a university for this. You go to a bookstore, I don't know, Barnes and Nobles. You go to the spiritual section. You get online, you look for books. You're going to be studying a lot of things, different topics. You're going to be reading a lot of different, Neil Anderson is out there, the Bondage Breakers, a lot of wonderful groups out there that have ministries that deal with this. You're going to study. I'm just bringing you what I went through. So this one is called Basic Helping People in a Different Way. We call it the Lord's Way, a spiritual way. It's wonderful once you get there. You have a lot of mistakes. You have a lot to learn. These are just basic courses we're going to go through. And eventually, you know, there's a lot on the internet. I looked them up. I read their prayers. I studied. I looked at their books that they read, the people they look. I go to the back of the book and see the bibliographies. And I must have then go to the bookstore and I bought all the books. And I read them and reread them and read them and reread them and read them and reread them and read them some more. If there's videos, I listen to them and I read the books again. And I go again back to the spiritual warfare section. A lot of wonderful women out there that are doing this. There's a lot of people that are speaking it. But first, you have to believe that you're called to help people and that there is a spiritual realm that you are going to get involved in, and you're going to learn about and become educated to help people in that realm. Then you're going to study a lot in the different faith books, and you're going to study history, and you're going to go back and you're going to study the ancient texts, and you're going to go on YouTube and you're going to listen to the book of Enoch, the book of Thomas. You're going to study the Gnostic Gospels. You're going to study everything. And you're going to see that humanity, even the Egyptians, believed in demonics. The Catholic Church still believes in demonic spirits, that somebody who's having problems, if we've checked out their physical body and there's no tumors and everything's all right, we've done a mental health diagnosis and there's nothing there, and they're doing very odd, strange things, then it's probably a spiritual matter, and they have trained exorcists. The true story of The Exorcist, it's out there. What we saw in the movies, it was sort of embellished, as we know. The actual person was a little boy, and his mother had been into witchcraft. The priest there, if you type it in, the priest is there. There's a lot of wonderful spiritual stuff about people being in witchcraft, coming out. Lambs to the Slaughter's a great one. Joanne Michelson, that lived in this stuff and have come out and written their stories, and it's out there. So anybody can study it. The books are available, the videos are available, and you can help people in spiritual care, in the spiritual way, to help their spirit. Because then when you help the spirit will help the soul, and the soul will help, excuse me. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm all disgruntled here. Just don't know what's going on today. Been at the flea market. This is my second tape and a little tired. My feet are hurting. Please forgive me. Sorry guys about that. Had to get things straightened around here. Study. You'll be reading a lot. Some of the other great books that I read was by Dr. Rebecca Brown. called He Came to Set the Captives Free. She had 3 or 4. Open my eyes. Read. The information's out there. It's not hidden from you. So Basic in the King's International Spiritual Care University is helping people in the Spirit, from the spiritual way, learning about spiritual care, learning the rules of that realm, learning all that you can from every source that you can, believing what they're telling you about that realm and how it interferes with us, it affects us, it involves our soul and our physical body, and it is at work here on planet Earth even now today. Read, study, look at YouTube, buy books. If you are really interested in helping people from a spiritual viewpoint. So this is Pastor Deborah, Agape Love Ministries, Love is Here, www.agapeloveishere.org. Pastor Deborah at agapeloveishere.org is my email. Also on Twitter, LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel called The Hidden Kingdoms. This one should go up and it'll be on that, and it'll be on the playlist called The King's International Spiritual Care University. I'll put that in the section under Basic. And then what I'll do is I'm going to make videos and we're going to work our way through. And remember what I said, I'm not going to give you the test. You're going to read books, you're going to do your own studies, and God will provide you with an opportunity to take a test and either pass or fail. And if you don't study and you don't look and you're not serious, then you won't be able to help people. So I want you to keep studying and growing and learning. So this is sort of a basic overview of myself. I'm still doing it, and it doesn't get along with most mental health people, and because they don't want to hear about this, and I've got some strange, powerful stories, so I try to keep them, don't tell you all of them, but in this section of the website and the university, you'll be hearing a lot of them. I have a lot of them to write up or tell them stories, and I had to learn a lot. I had to look beyond the natural. I had to do a lot of work. I had to study hard, and now it's kind of easy for me. That's why I'm teaching. So feel free to contact me. I had to decide if this was real, if this realm was real, if the Catholics were right, if all these people on YouTube, Neil Anderson, the Robertsons, if all these books, there's another great one called Pigs in the Parlor, if all these books were real, if spiritual warfare was real, if there was a real spiritual realm and real spiritual enemies, and they were affecting us and affecting people we care about, even children, and they were getting in animals and dogs and stuff. We saw that from the Bible where some guy gets in a serpent in the garden. I had to come to the decision that was either real or it was all fake. And once I got where I needed to be, that it was real, I could start studying. So enjoy this one. I'll try to get it up, and go get those books and look up spiritual warfare books, look up understanding the spiritual realm. There's a lot of wonderful teachers out there from every denomination, a lot of different prayer ministries that'll help you. And welcome. Welcome to school, the university, and to the spiritual battle. Love, Pastor Deborah. Class is dismissed, and I'm done for today.